How's it going, everybody? This is the Erroneous One here with a new Kingdom Hearts Union Cross video. Today, I had somebody earlier ask me, and, well, he asked me today, but I've also had other people ask me in the past, with more frequency, um, what kind of traits you want to utilize. What are traits? What's a good trait on this medal? Is this a good trait to have on this medal? How come my medal is dealing more damage when theirs is not, and they're both like max skeleton and have like the full Chip and Dales on them and like 83 maxes? Why is that happening? And the answer to that one now, and it's becoming more and more prevalent, is traits. Traits are important in the game. They were the most, I'm going to say they were the most game-changing thing in the game that we've had, bar none. They've had the most impact in the game. They've changed how we look at medals and what we think is good. In the past, when we had medals and we got them, when we got them max guilted, we're like, okay, this medal is now fully Chip and Dale. It is now max guilted, and it is now the pinnacle of what it can be. And that is no longer the case. Two people having the exact same medal now and running something entirely different with traits on them, either different traits or no traits at all, you're going to see a huge impact in how the medals perform now. And that's just the way it is. And Cena was... They were kind of interested in this one, and I'm still not sure why they decided to institute the traits exactly in the game. I mean, it's kind of like when you're actually playing one of the actual console Kingdom Hearts games. You can get on different AP points, and you can add on different little things that help you out, like, treasure magnet, or in this case, darkness defense plus 20%, or that kind of thing, or you deal more fire damage plus X amount, that kind of thing is whereas present in the game, and it kind of brought it over here onto this side, which changed a lot of things. I mean, some people were thinking that maybe they put in traits for primarily just for the whale players in the game, who had already had max copies, and they didn't have medals, and they didn't have a reason to pull anymore for the most part. If they were only going to pull for one new medal, they may not pull that much anymore because they're going like, hey, you know what, I don't particularly need this new medal, or I already have guilted version of other medals, so any other medals I get out of there are just going to be extras to have on for no reason now, because, I already have max guilted. Why would I want to illustrate as indices right here, for instance, when I already have one that's already max guilt? That kind of thing. So, which, that's not an entirely mistaken thought process in that regard. So, I don't think it's really the case, though. I think they're just trying to bring over a portion of, like, the main console games and bring it into this one. Irregardless of that fact, they still had a huge impact in the game and how it ran, which it was pretty noticeable, obviously. So, the main question people were asking me is, why do I value some traits over other traits, and what are they doing? Obviously, one of the big ones that nobody likes seeing for the most part, that is unfortunately all too common, are the status resistance traits. Nobody really wants to see like a paralysis or a poison resist on a medal that's hard to come by, on limited medals. Medals like high score challenge medals, for instance. You don't want to see that kind of thing on them. Unfortunately, a good example of that would be, where are you? You are... Chugga. There we go. My Mickey and Minnie are here, for instance. It got a Max Gauge +2 and a Paralysis Resist roll on it. So, obviously not the best traits in the world for a medal like this. That is very useful. Thankfully, Mickey and Minnie's utility outweighs the traits on it, but for those people who managed to get double cast on it, kudos to you guys. You got a very powerful medal. Monster D-Face, I know, got a double cast on his Mickey and Minnie, so that was a great roll for him on that one. Mine weren't so good on that one. And, Max Gauge +2 is nice. I mean, obviously, I would have preferred something a little different, but it's not a bad one. But definitely don't want to see the Paralysis Resist plus 20%, or Paralysis 20%. And, I'm pretty sure that Cena knows that. I'm pretty sure Cena knows that no player values any of the status resistance traits, which is why it seems like they've tried to incorporate them more into their bigger quest events. The most noticeable case of this was present in the previous Organization 13 event for Zexion B, where in Quest 12 we had that little mob group, and in that mob group was that accursed little archer that put you to sleep constantly. and with a seeming like 99% chance of putting you to sleep if it hits you, you're going to sleep. And it was exceedingly aggravating to deal with that if you weren't able to knock him out in one turn, or like, or you didn't have, I guess in this case, sleep resist traits. So they're trying to make players value those skills or those traits a little more than they have in the past. And that's impacting players in different ways. For me, myself, it didn't really bother me too much because more often than not, either I can overpower it with the medals I have, because I do have greater resources than a lot of players do. I'm able to overpower it just for stronger medals, or I can just Nova Blast it out of my way, which is what I did to those archers in the event. And so I don't even have to worry about it too much, because the group of enemies that has that are now knocked out by my Nova Blast. But the majority of players don't have that. So they kind of have to work around that, or work with the trait system in regards to that. So what I recommend doing for that for players now is, if you have a medal like this and you did get a status trait on it, maybe it'll actually help you out in events like that. Or if you want to start working on some like tier 2 or even tier 3 medals that you don't use very often, or that you don't mind popping in there every now and then, and you roll, like for instance, I'm going to try and roll some status resistant traits on this Mulan right here. I don't really care which one, I just want a roll in it. So if I ever had to use it for any kind of reason for an event like that, where I couldn't actually just power my way through the event, or I couldn't Nova the enemy that was dealing the status ailment to me out of my way, hopefully with her on deck, she could actually help me resist the status ailment. So that's a workaround. You can get certain medals you have like that to help you survive those kind of things. Doesn't even have to be a tier 2. A tier 2 is just an example. It could even be like a tier 3 that you don't use too often. Or if you have multiple copies of medals by chance, like say for instance you have a Zaldin right here, and you got lucky enough. I rolled aerial defense -60 on this guy. I also have it on this one, but I really want ground on this one. But this third one right here, as an example, is almost fully gilded with no trait. If I were to roll a status resistance on that one, I wouldn't mind that too much, because I would have a medal that would still deal damage, and also give me that status resistance in case I needed it. That's a workaround. If you guys, and granted, I know the operators don't have as many Zaldin Bees just sitting here as I do, so it's kind of hard to really say that. But as an example, if you already had one gilded, or if you had one that was not gilded, but you had another one next to it that you rolled one into, and for whatever reason it rolled a status resistance on it, you might want to keep that one with that status resistance on it to use in the future as you level it up, or potentially are able to get the gilt later on. There are other options, there are workarounds around that, but that's something you might want to consider for events like that, because like I said, most players don't have the ability to just Nova their problems away like I do in regards to those kind of events. You need to be able to survive the turn. One big one would be poison, for instance. You know, if that archer was one of the poison ones, because those archers come in the 3 varieties: paralysis, poison, and sleep. If the archer poisoned you and you died from all the accompanying hits from the different enemies in the mob, and you had your second chance go off and it brought you back, it's only going to bring you back with 1 HP, and you're going to die from the poison. So obviously you'd want a poison resist trait on that one, so that would not happen. So if your second chance did go off, you were looking to come back, you weren't poisoned and didn't die from the poison. That's a big one too. So there are certain workarounds that you guys kind of have to look at now, for the most part, in order to defeat them. Or again, other options, of course, is to focus on that one particular enemy alone. Make sure you kill it within the first turn, or whatever time frame it has on there, and because in this case, those little archers have counters above them. And I think the last one in the Coliseum B event had like 2 counters on it, I want to say. So you had 2 chances to knock it out before it would activate its ability and put you to sleep and just, make your day miserable. That's something that you kind of have to work around too and see what you have. So in that case, having medals like that would be a good idea. So if you are able to do so, it might be good to start putting some tier 2 medals, keep them around, put other dots into them just to try and get those status resistance traits, and it can help you there. On the whole, like I said, I'm still not a fan of status resistance traits. I don't like them. I don't ever want to see them on my medals, but they do have a purpose sometimes in parts of the game. So there is that point on that portion on the status ones. The next ones up are going to be depending on where you actually want to focus your game on, and that's going to be there are two giant aspects to the game. One of them is raiding, one of them is Coliseum. They kind of go hand in hand with what you want to do. Coliseum rankings gives you access to new awesome skills at the end of the month if you're able to rank high enough. Last month was the AB4 plus SB Gauge 2. No, sorry, AB4 Max. This month it is the AB4 plus SB Gauge 2. Those skills are very worthwhile to go into. That's not to say that they won't come out in other ways. They're going to come out in other ways via, usually like avatar boards and such. So you're going to have other chances, other opportunities to get them. They might even show up in like skills or thrill deals. So you have other chances to get them, but they're usually first introduced to Coliseum. And of course, it's always nice to having to get them without having to spend anything on like a skills or thrill or an avatar board. So you can save your jewels for other things you may want to get later down the road. So they are in there. And for Coliseum, the most important thing for Coliseum in regards to traits is going to be the aerial and ground minus 60%. The plus side of that is those traits also translate into parts of the game, like through story quests and such. The only downside of that is they don't really seem, and I could be wrong on this one, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think I'm wrong, but it kind of flips over to like, to raid bosses and even certain quest bosses. You still deal more damage with the ground or the aerial, depending on what it kind of is. I guess if it's a dark side, that'd be ground. If it's one of those fishies, like for instance now, the daily raid boss now, those are floating in the air, so they're aerial. It kind of varies off from those ones, and they're going to be helpful for that one. But against actual raid bosses, when you're actually raiding, the aerial and the ground traits don't seem to help out too much against those enemies. You still do a little more damage, don't get me wrong, but not as much as you would if you had the raid plus 40% perk on your medal. So for instance, my HD, not that one guy, sorry, my HD Riku, so HD Roxas here is set for raiding. He has an extra attack, so he gets the double debuff of on enemies, and he also has damage and rage plus 40%. Example for that one would be here. It'll be my new one right here. This guy has extra attack and ground enemy defense minus 60. So he's gonna be very, very good against in Coliseum and against like certain quest bosses and like just quests in general. He's gonna deal a lot of damage, bar none, right there by himself, which is great. So that obviously this one here would be better off for raids. And the damage they deal would be noticeable. I mean, you're gonna see a pretty big difference. So even though it says, if I were to go in there against a dark side raid boss, for instance, there's a raid boss with a dark side, or any kind of like any kind of speed based, it's not speed, yeah, speed based raid boss. This Roxas is going to deal more damage, even though the raid is plus 4% and the skill on this one is minus 60. You still deal more damage against raid bosses with that raid trait than you do with the ground enemy defense minus 60 trait. Because it's just the way it seems to work out in regards to that, which is fair enough. That's how they're going to pan out. So when you're doing these kind of traits as well too, you kind of have to think about what do you want the medal to do. And a lot of people now are waiting to even see what skills they put onto certain medals depending on what traits they get. I mean, that's the case too, because I put an AB2 Max plus Lux Plus onto my HD Roxas because he does deal that extra raid damage. So he's definitely a raid medal for me, for sure. He works great for that one. This guy right here, he came with defense plus 1, but on him, I want to put like an AB4 because he has that ground minus 60% on him. So he's going to deal a lot of damage, and I want him to deal the most damage possible against enemies. So having him with a skill like that would be better off. So depending on what traits you roll is also going to impact what kind of skills you roll onto there. Back to Coliseum in this regard, having a medal that's going to have aerial and ground minus 60% is going to be the most desirable and needed thing if you want to do any form of climbing in Coliseum. If you want to get into tier 14 and keep on moving up into Coliseum, you need to have two things. A medal that has the appropriate trait on it, either ground or aerial, or if you're lucky enough, both. Since they do not stack, you can't get two ground and have 120% minus defense against ground enemies, because that'd be absolutely broken. But if you have a medal there that has those in there for you, that's going to be awesome. Again, it's also one of the reasons why I have more than one copy and why I'm working on more than one copy of Zaldin B. Or even on more than one copy of, like, Goofy, for instance. My tier Goofy. He has ground minus 60. This one I want to focus and get aerial minus 60 on this guy. That's going to be for anything like, like Proud Quest, for instance. I can switch them out depending on what any grouping is in there. So if one of the requirements for the Proud Quest is to have a medal that costs 1 in your Keyblade setups, or one that only deals like 3 or less hits or something like that, he'll be there to utilize no matter which path I choose, air or ground. He's going to work out because he'll have those traits on him, so he's interchangeable. Obviously, having multiple copies of medals is beneficial to that situation. This dude here has, ground and raid damage. He would be a good raid medal going in for that kind of thing. But back to HD Riku right here, back to Illustrated Leon here. You need to have medals that have those defense minus 60% traits on them, and you also, as you get further into there, need to have traits, or need to have skills for general defense down. It is going to be a necessary thing going into play against higher level Coliseum. If you want to Collie Climb, those traits are needed to compete at those higher levels. You need to have those traits, and you need to have general defense down. So far, from what I've seen, tier 14 and getting to around like 100 or so, you're going to be okay with just -2 general defense down. But as you get past that, you're definitely going to need to add in more tiers, general defense down debuffs against enemies, along with the traits there. So one of the things I want to do with you guys is kind of show you guys what I mean by that. I kind of feel the other traits are self-explanatory. Aspect Gauge +2, Strength +1,000, Defense +2,000. Those are kind of like known quantities, and we kind of know what they do. If you guys get Strength +1,000, you're kind of good. You're good against anything. You're going to deal decent damage against aerial or ground enemies. It's not really going to matter because it's +1,000, so it's going to be a general effect, which is going to be great for a lot of things. But on the whole, you kind of want to stick with either aerial or ground traits. So we have equipment here, and we'll go over here to my we'll use this one here. So we're going to use this one right here. Because my Ursula is going to be a good example. This one here has AB3 Max +++, and it has ground enemy defense -60. So, and it also has a setup here for my Key Art 7. That was my high score attempt. This one here was my AoE setup for Coliseum, because I had double cast on my Key Art 7. So that's 2, and then I also managed to get double cast onto my Illustrated Shion right there. So that worked well for me. And she also has damage range +40%, so that kind of worked out. She has a AB3+++ on her, so that's pretty good. But we're going to go in there with this one here. So I'm going to go in there. I'm not going to activate anything except for, well, I won't activate anything. I'll show you guys the damage that they deal, and then I'm going to show you guys a setup that utilizes her Ursula without the ground trait on it, and show you guys the difference in damage and why it's so important. So come into Coliseum right here. Okay, this will be a good one. Gargoyle Knight. Okay, so here we go. Gargoyle Knight. Level 199. That one is a speed one, so I'm going to that one. So all we're going to do is just swipe, 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 and I'm actually going to activate her just to get my SP replenished a little bit. Actually, it didn't even matter. I didn't need to do that. Okay, so ground enemy right here against the Gargoyle Knight. I'm going to activate Ursula. And 73,000 damage per hit. That's how much she did. That was with no... actually, no, that was a buff. So that was with 1 Kyrie buff on her already, because I didn't need to activate her, because I'm just going to end it out anyway. But she dealt 73 damage with no added buff except for Kyrie. Okay. Good damage. Great damage. That's why she helps me push the Coliseum so much. But, if I come over here, and I were to switch out this Ursula right here with my other Ursula... Yeah, this one here. So this one also has an AB3 max on it. So they're going to do the same thing, but this one has no traits. So this is a max skills Ursula, fully chip and daled with the same equivalent attack boost on it. Because this one here has AB3 max +++ on it. Again, fully gilded, fully chip and dale on it. We're just going to switch these two out. So, no traits. And all we're going to do is activate Kyrie again, just to show you guys the corroborative damage for that one. So, you know what we're looking at there. Alright, so swiping, swipe, swipe, and Ursula. 38,000 damage, almost 40,000 damage. Did you guys see the difference there? That is a gigantic, that's a difference of 30,000 points of damage on the enemy with the ground trait on Ursula. That's nothing to scoff at. That's a huge, huge thing, and it's going to be a needed thing in Coliseum. Like I said, it's good against other things too. You know, going through and just doing general story quests, going through and doing proud quests, going through and doing against a certain raid boss, not raid boss, against certain story bosses and everything. Those traits are going to be good against all that, but their main feature is for Coliseum. So if you guys have any kind of inclination to pushing Coliseum, you need to have those traits, and eventually you're going to need to start getting the general defense down traits, or general defense down debuffers in your setup in order to keep on pushing further and beyond. You're going to need a combination of both of those things. That's just the way the game pans out in this case, so take that, again, for what you will in this regard. I mean, it's a pretty thing. He has an AB4 on him, and he has a grounding message, so he does quite a bit of damage for Coliseum climbing as well. I'm actually kind of considering putting an AB4 max on him, so he'll always activate, but I haven't quite decided that yet. You know, those are still a precious commodity. I didn't want to waste it on, not waste one when I could use it on a different metal coming out that could be more beneficial to me. So there's that. But that's kind of my idea on traits, guys. That's kind of my idea on how they're utilized and how they function in there. Like I said, depending on, the guild is no longer the most important thing for these medals. It's going to be the traits you roll on it. And it's a clever thing by Cena, because in order to roll traits, you need to roll copies of the medals into it. In order to do that, you need to pull. In order to do that, you need to spend. So Cena definitely made it to where, you know, if you really want to get further into the higher end aspect of the game for like Coliseum and certain events, you definitely need the traits, and you need to spend money to get those traits. That being said, I do not advocate chasing traits. Chasing traits leads to madness and frustration and anguish and despair on a lot of people for a lot of things. Because you need to spend the money in order to get the actual copies of medals to roll into them, and then you need to have RNG to roll into them to get the appropriate trait you want. After that, guilding becomes a thing, and then, you know, you can having a higher guild obviously will help you out, but it's not going to be the most important thing in regards to that because of the trait rolls for it. So you don't need to chase traits, because you're going to end up spending a lot of money for trait rolls, and you're not guaranteed anything out of it. It's one thing to spend money on a guaranteed thing. For the key art banner, for instance, you're guaranteed a key art medal, which are great medals. You great to have. You definitely want them there. Even without them being guilted or with traits on them, they're still very powerful in terms of, like, you know, you can copy buffers or debuffers to help out other medals to deal more damage in order to get past certain events. They are still worthwhile. Apologies, guys. My throat's still messing up me a little bit. They still have a purpose there. Trying to spend money to chase traits, you're not guaranteed anything, unfortunately. You're playing with RNG in hopes of actually A, getting the medal, and then B, rolling the appropriate trait you need on it in the first place. So, you know, definitely a catch-22 in that regard, for sure, by a lot. So don't chase traits, but, you know, if you get lucky with the roller traits on them, you're going to be set up for different things, obviously, for different events, be it Coliseum, be it story quests, be it against raid bosses, depending on what you have, you know, that kind of thing. Which, again, one more reason why you don't want to see status traits, because, you know, it takes away from things that are more needed and more beneficial for other parts of the game. So, and of course, you know, Cia knows that, but yeah, guild isn't as important as traits are now, because traits impact a lot of things. Traits impact how you can use a medal now. If you use it in raiding, if you use it in Coliseum, if you use it for this general overall usage, and in particular, and also what skills you put on medals. Obviously, you're not really going to want to put a luck skill onto a medal that does not have a raid boss plus 40% perk on it. over like an attack skill, because there's no need for that kind of thing. So it's going to impact upon what skills you're also going to put on it, and it's how you're going to utilize the medal overall too. Like I said, you guys saw that the damage difference between an Ursula that had no traits on it as opposed to one that had that ground enemy defense minus 60 on it. There was a 30,000 point damage differential on that, which is insane. So they do have a pretty hefty impact. I hope this video wasn't too rambly. You know, I just had a lot of questions about that recently, and I kind of wanted to address it. So I hope this gave you guys a good idea on the traits and, like, you know, how they're used and what you should use them on for the most part. Buffer medals, obviously, buffer and debuffer medals, obviously, we're always going to want to see double cast on those things. So you can get the max buff or get as much buff as you can out of them going forward, that kind of thing. Pure damage medals, like for instance, Riku right here, I wouldn't want double cast on him because, you know, the double cast damage is greatly reduced when you do it the second time, and it also costs a lot more. You know, that would be 6 SP altogether if I use the special twice. And you may not want to do that, or you may not be able to do that with how much actual SP you have, or if you have like a decent SP replenisher like KH2 Kyrie there. So there are definitely some roundabout ways of doing that. Pure attacker medals don't need a double cast because they get reduced. Buffers and debuffers do. And then you run into that unique aspect where you get a medal that is both a buffer or a debuffer and is insanely powerful and deals a lot of damage, i.e. Ursula. Ursula has a very, very, very high multiplier with a 4.60. So she actually has a higher multiplier than like a Master Xehanort, for instance, who only has a 4.58 multiplier. So not a huge difference, but it does make some difference in there. And she also buffs. So that's where you're getting kind of tricky, and that's the part where you want to see both a double cast trait and a trait that will help it deal more damage. So those are the unique situation medals for that kind of thing. And that's kind of where you kind of have to walk in and go, okay, you know, again, the traits you roll will determine what skills you put on it. So you kind of have to look at them and figure out what you want to do there. But even then, if it's a buffer medal, despite any kind of damage it may deal, like if she was a, I would still want to get double cast on her over any other trait that would help me deal more damage because she's a buffer. Any kind of buffer or debuffer, you want to focus on getting double cast on that one first before you worry about getting any kind of extra trait that would help increase its damage output. So, double cast is still the preferred trait on these ones right here. And then again, medals that just deal straight damage, you want to focus on traits that will help them deal more damage. Double cast on those ones isn't so good. So again, that's going to be it for the video, guys. I got a bit rambly there. I do apologize. I hope the video was concise and to the point enough to where you guys got what I was saying in terms of, you know, what traits do what you want on certain medals, and how to utilize them, and just how much they've impacted the game overall. So I'm going to end the video here. Later tonight, guys, as you can see, I did get I was lucky enough to get a eBay sale going through. Don't need that one. eBay sale went through today, so I was able to get some more jewels, thankfully. So tonight I will be doing a few pulls for key arts and even a few pulls for Dragon Maleficent later tonight. So that's something to look forward to you guys coming to you guys later tonight. But this video, I hope this video, guys, helped you guys out with traits and just what they do and how they impact the game. I hope they answer the questions that people have been asking me, mainly. So this video was done to do that for those people who were asking me questions about traits. So I'm in it here because, again, I'm just rambling now. I'm still kind of loopy from the medication that I've been taking for my cold and sinuses. So I'm going to stop and have a request. I don't seem to have a stop filter on my mouth right now. I'm just talking. So I'm in it now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope the video, guys, helped you guys out. And I will see you guys later tonight on my pool video. So you guys have a great night or a great day, and happy 4th of July.